Good morning. My name is Penel Ralph. I'm a visual artist. I'm living with my art more than 20 years. As a professional, I think I skipped the most important part in my professional life, the legal part. That's why today we were talking about the legal art. The Legal Art podcast has discussions about topics across art and law from outlier and artist. Pa bliye, jeudi a, nou gen pou nou pale de sculpture, vandalisme avec loi. Nou gen avec nou yon entrepreneur, avec yon lawyer, Antoine Dumas.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here. It's a pleasure. Again, like you said, my name's Attorney Antoine Dumas. I'm the owner of Talented 10th Law, and our purpose is to maximize the protection and prosperity for the underprivileged and uninformed in the courtroom and the boardroom. We've been doing this for over 6 years, and I started out in entertainment law. It's not my specialty anymore, but it is something that I have a lot of knowledge about, and look forward to sharing that knowledge with you all today. And if you have any questions or you'd like to engage someone in the entertainment related space, you could always reach out and I can refer you to a friend or two who can help you out. But until then, I hope you enjoy what we have to present with you today.
Ki sa kompanyi yo atan de communauté haïtienne nan? En fait, communauté haïtienne nan plus communauté Latin American, Jamaican, etc.
Sure. So before we get to that question, I do want to explain why you see chips here as well. So I'm also the co-founder of Culture Brands, and we produce culture chips. We have some other products coming out, culture popcorn as well. So please support the movement. It's www.culturechips.com. And you can also find more about my law firm and who I am at www.talented10thlaw.com. For me, that's, first of all, I should also say I was a pastor before I was a lawyer. So if you think lawyers like to talk, I'm a pastor too, so I love to talk. So I have a lot to say. So when it comes to my expectations, I think the best advice I can give to any aspiring artist, entertainer, producer, filmmaker, anyone in the artistic, creative community is to understand what the growth gaps are and which ones apply to you. Anytime you are attempting to achieve a goal, you have a dream, there's something that you want to do in life. The space between accomplishing that goal and where you are is called a gap. And there are gaps, there are 8 different types of growth gaps that keep people from achieving their goals, right? So really quickly, I just want to make sure that if you are watching this and you are wanting to find or learn information, that's great, but there's no substitute for action, right? And so understanding these gaps will help you in terms of planning your strategy and ultimately achieving your goals. So number 1, is the assumption gap. There's a lot of people who they want to do something, they want to achieve a goal, and they assume that, just by breathing, that is just going to happen for them automatically, right? When we're children, when we were young, we did not have to think and strategize how to grow taller or how to grow another age. We just woke up every morning and these things happen automatically. And some of us think that when it comes to achieving a goal in business, that things will just happen automatically. The minute I make a listing on Google or I create a Facebook page, everyone's just going to come automatically. That's not how it works. And if that gap applies to you, you need to be aware of that and understand there are professionals like myself and consultants like the brother Ralph who can help you to fill in that gap. And that's why you want to, engage people like us. Same thing with the knowledge gap. People who say, I don't know how to grow. And so they have an idea, they know they want to accomplish something, but because they don't know how, they don't do anything, right? But we live in an age where you have the world's knowledge in the palm of your hands. There's nothing that you don't know that you cannot find out if you want to know. right? And so even the Bible says, ask and you shall receive, seek and you will find, knock and the door will be open. So knowledge is available, you just have to go and get it. The timing gap. There are people who constantly tell themselves, I want to achieve this goal, but I don't have the time, right? Or it's not the right time yet, I'll do it later. But the reality is this law actually has a sub-law called the law of diminishing intent, which says the longer I take to do something, the least likely I am to do it. Right? So the more time you sit there and think about it, the least likely you are to ever do it. And so if you're an artist, you're watching this, and you know you have these dreams of sculptures, of paintings, of movies, of music you want to put out there, it's never going to be the right time. The time is always now to get started. The mistake gap, being scared of making a mistake. The perfection gap, trying to find the best way to start before you start. You know, sometimes the best artists out there, the best videos are the ones just like this. You know, on a stage you make yourself, and then you keep going at it consistently over time. Eventually, next thing you know, you're in Madison Square Garden. So it takes effort and consistency, and it's never going to be perfect when you start. But as you grow, as you go, you grow.
Yes.
Right?
You fail 2 times.
You fail 2 times.
You wake up.
That's right. That's right.
Yes.
You get back up again, right? Then last 2 are the inspiration gap. I don't feel like it. You know, so many people they go by their feelings instead of acting. And the thing is, you're more likely to act your way into feeling than to feel your way into acting. You got that?
Perfect.
You're more likely to act when you start working towards your goal. The feeling to continue will come. Automatically, your brain will release endorphins that'll make you happy every time you accomplish your goals. And that feeling will carry you through. But if you wait for those feelings to come before you start, those feelings will never come.
Okay.
Right? So it's important to understand the gaps, understand that there are professionals like us you can consult with, who can help you to move towards your goals. And so that's my expectation for the community. Don't stop where you are now. Don't stop at this video, but keep learning and understand what your gaps are and work to overcome them.
Good say. Pas oublier, nous avons regardé legal art. Legal art is about discuss between art and law, from artist and lawyer. On a parlé de culture. Mais est-ce que vous avez un cas qui a engagé un artiste par rapport avec art? Like, have you handled some case?
Of course.
Engaging an artist?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I first started my practice, I did entertainment law. That was my main area of law. And so I worked with, musicians, artists, creatives, graphic artists, as well as, written artists. And, most times, we had a great experience. The main concern I had for those cases were with the individuals who expected to outsource all the learning to me, right? They didn't take responsibility for the learning themselves. If you go to school, you have to read, you have to take tests, you have to show that you understand the information. Most professions that you go to school to become licensed or to become prepared to do something, you have to put in time learning. I understand you're born with a gift, you're born with the ability to do something, but unless you learn the business side too, you put yourself in a position where you can be taken advantage of. And so being here today, talking to us, watching our video, is going to be a good first step to understand what your rights are, but it doesn't stop there. You have to continue to educate yourself so that, when you do hire people to help you, you know what to expect from them. You can inspect what you expect and not be surprised when people start doing things that you don't, that they're not supposed to be doing.
Okay. What is the legal skill from a sculptor between his clients, like a particular, the city, or a business?
Okay, so good question. I understand basically what are the principles established between a sculptor, an artist, and the city with the business, the different principles at play when an artist is engaging with these types of people. And I think to really explain that question, you have to understand the legal theory behind entertainment law, right, as a whole, right? So or even why do people have the right to own anything, right? Where does the right to possession come from? And honestly, it was a guy named John Locke, and I wrote it down here because I didn't want to forget. But John Locke actually said that, but by what right does an individual claim to own one part of the world, when according to the Bible, God gave the world to all of humanity in common? And he answered that the person themselves, when they put their labor, when they work on something, their labor enters the object or enters the land. And then because their labor enters the land, that land belongs to them, or that piece of art belongs to them. And so intellectual property law is the same as property law in the sense that if I have an idea and I create that idea, my labor goes into that product. And because of that, that product belongs to me, right? And so when you're dealing with a government or with a business or with a client, now the question is, what if somebody comes to you and says, hey, Ralph, I don't have any artistic skill, but I want a picture, I want a painting of the Citadel, right? Can you paint a picture of the Citadel for me in Haiti? I want it to look like this. I want it to have this type of vibe. And, hey, can you understand? You say, yeah, I get the picture. I'm going to make it for you. So now, not only is it my idea, my mental labor going into the product, now your mental labor is going into the product too. And so the question becomes, by law, by default, who owns that product after you make it for me? If I tell you to paint for me and you put your labor into it too, because I gave you the idea, technically by law, it belongs to us 50-50. But if I don't want you to own that product or that painting or whatever it is that you make for me, my responsibility is to tell you up front in what they call a work made for hire. It's a form of contract, form of agreement that I can give to an artist when I'm commissioning them to create something for me that says, hey, listen, your compensation for your labor is $500, right? But you're not going to have any ownership in this product that you make for me because it's my idea and I'm the one who gave you the idea. And so that agreement is what states the rights of the people involved, whether it's with a business, whether with a person or a government. Anytime someone is asking you to produce art for them, if they don't give you a work for hire agreement, that means you own it the 50-50 with them. And so if it's the other way around, if you want to make sure you have someone doing a project for you and you don't want them to own it, you have to make sure you give them a work made for hire agreement, because that's the only thing that can protect you. Otherwise, by allowing somebody else to work on your idea, they would own it 50-50.
Unfortunately, it's not a win-win operation.
Why do you say that?
Il pas un partenariat gagnant. Because, the artists from Haiti, ils juste travaillent et qui ont une série d'entrepreneurs qui achètent œuvre avec un petit prix qui est petit et qui vendent et contraire avec artistes, des fois les verbal, des fois pas touché, donc it's not.
That's too bad. And that's the thing is like, I'll give you some French. Mon peuple est détruit par manque de connaissances.
Perfect.
Right? So, like, listen, at the end of the day, ignorance will cost you a lot. If you're doing something and it's your business, this is how you provide for your family. You have to educate yourself.
Yes.
You have to pay for people who are professionals to assist you and make sure you're not being taken advantage of. Nobody owes you anything. This world is not fair.
That's why so
that's why
legal art.
That's right.
Okay, let's talk about vandalism.
Sure.
What does law say about vandalism? Nous connaissons vandalisme, c'est le peuvent exister, soit ils détruisent ou bien ils mimiquent ou bien
graffiti.
Il y a une sorte de reproduction ils fait qui mettent dans cadre vandalisme. Qui ça la loi dit à propos de vandalisme?
I actually wanted to pull this law up for you from Florida statutes. So it's actually in Florida a criminal offense to vandalize somebody else's art, right? It's a criminal offense to. So, for example, if I build a sculpture and somebody comes and draws their name on it or paints on it or does something to destroy it, cuts a piece of it off, right? Then it's actually a misdemeanor in Florida if the damage is worth $200 or less. But if it's worth Anywhere between $200 and $1,000, it's a felony, a third-degree felony. And if the damage is worth more than $1,000, it's a first-degree felony. So understand, it's a very serious penalty. When somebody uses their brain that God gave them to create something for the public good, and it beautifies the area, and it inspires people and motivates people, society has determined that these things are worth protection. They're worth our protection. And so as a result, based on the amount of damage you create to that product or to that work, you can be charged with a crime. When it comes to things like counterfeit counterfeit duplication, things like that, you're actually crossing over into civil realm. So that's not a crime per se, but it is something that is a civil penalty. So for example, that means I can't put you in jail, but I can force you to pay me some money, right?
Okay.
So typically, the minute an idea is transferred from your mind to any form of tangible medium, meaning paper, pen, computer, clay, dirt, grass, whatever. The minute my idea becomes something tangible, by law, automatically I have something called a common law copyright, right?
Okay.
It's copyrighted, meaning that I have a right for someone else not to copy this thing. Now, here's the issue. Common law might protect me if I go to court and I prove that I'm the one who created it. But to prove that I'm the one who created it, I have to hire an attorney, I have to pay a lot of money, and it takes a lot of time, right? So you don't want someone to copy your work and then take them to court to prove that you had it first and you had the common law right, you were first in time. You want to make sure that you get what's called a federal copyright or a federal trademark. What that means is that the minute I take the extra step to tell the government, I created this thing and I need you to recognize my ownership in creating this thing, the government gives you a certificate that says this work of art belongs to you, nobody else can copy it. So if somebody else goes and copies it, I don't have to go to court. All I have to do is say, I have this paperwork. This gives me the presumption that it belongs to me. And automatically you're wrong, unless you can prove that I got this by fraud or something, right? Which you're not going to be able to do. And so taking the extra step to get a copyright, taking the extra step to file a trademark is essential, because not only does it protect you in the state where you live, like a common law copyright does, a federal copyright protects you all over the country, anywhere in the country, and also all over the world where a country has a treaty, an agreement with the United States of America to protect each other's art.
You're watching Legal Art. It's about art, law, artists, and lawyer. These questions, it's like I'm gonna obviously bite the bullets.
Sure.
So when you're talking about art, you're talking about vandalism, you're talking about cultural, you're talking about history. So it's an act of vandalism or criminal to moving the monument from just like controversial
Sure.
or racism, such like what the law say about that.
Sure. So I actually love this question because, recently, and the question is, when you have a sculpture or something that might reference something racist or something controversial, is it a crime to vandalize those things? And to be able to answer that question, I have to define what a crime is, right? So a crime is a combination of actually four things, right? It takes four things to prove the existence of crime. It's called the actus reus, which is the act, the guilty act, mens rea, which means the guilty mind. You have causation, meaning the guilty act and guilty mind caused the damage, caused some type of damage. And then what they call, and this one is a little controversial, but the fourth element is the prohibited social harm, right? So now, for example, if I kill somebody, that's the act, right? And I do it in cold blood, meaning I waited for you to come home. I stayed there in your house planning to kill you, right? That's the worst type of, thing. And my actions and my mindset caused your death, right? Therefore, I'm guilty of first-degree murder, right? Now, if I kill a person, that's the act. But I see they're trying to kill me first, right? And I kill him first before he kills me. That's self-defense. So my mindset is not guilty, right? Only the act of is bad, but not the mindset. And so because the two don't match, it's not a crime. Society says, you know what, we authorize killing if it's in the protection of yourself or others, right? When it comes to vandalizing a monument or a piece of art that is deemed controversial, it comes down to whether or not the act and the mindset of doing that is something that society prohibits or society doesn't want. So what that means is, if I go and I see a monument to a Confederate general, you know, from the Civil War who represented the South,
Yes,
right?
that's the point.
Yeah, exactly, right? And I see this thing and I know what it stands for, and I go and I cut the head off the guy, right? Now, because we live in a society where, for the most part, we don't openly accept or embrace racism, you might be in a situation where the prosecutor might say, hey, listen, I know he has a guilty act. He had a guilty mind. He knew what he was doing, it was wrong, and it caused this damage. But as a society, we don't want to punish him because we actually agree with him, right? That's what it comes down to. If a prosecutor says, I'm not going to charge you, you're not going to be charged, even though you committed a crime.
Okay, well,
Sure.
the case of when people sign a petition, like to remove some art or arts or spaces from their community. So what is the law? How many signature we need?
Sure. There's no required amount of signature or minimum amounts of signature. What it comes down to is whether the pressure of all those people who signed that petition is enough to force the elected prosecutor to remove the thing or to turn the other way, you know, a blind eye if someone else decides to destroy it, right? What it always comes down to is society. If society says, you know, something is a crime, then it's a crime. You know, that's why every single time you see something happening on TV, you see the lawyers, they're arguing in court, but they're also arguing in front of the TV too, you know, in front of the TV cameras, because they understand, you know what, the 12 people who have to come here and vote in a jury to find me guilty, they need to know what I was thinking. If they agree with me, then even though you present all the information, they're not going to find me guilty. So for example, if you go historically back into United States history, you see that for many times there were murders, there were lynchings, there were things taking place where you know whites in the South, KKK would lynch a black man, and then they wouldn't even be charged with a crime. You know, even though on the books it says this is a crime, but because society backed up and agreed with the act of white people killing black people, nobody was ever put in jail. So at the end of the day, it always comes down to whether or not there's enough a critical mass in society to force a prosecutor to charge somebody or not to charge somebody.
The last question is,
Sure.
when we done with it, when we done with this process, nous retirer un statut que nous juger qui raciste dans la communauté. What will happen to the next generation? Est-ce que génération qui va venir, qui j'en va éduquer yo par rapport à statut ça, si statut là, nous pas parler de statut, nous éduquer génération qui va venir. Mais s'il pas là, est-ce que nous pas oublier?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the thing. You know, they always say, you know, if you don't know your history, then you're going to repeat it, right? So, whether there's good history or bad history, it's important to know where you come from, how you got to where you are. Because if you don't learn from those lessons, then you can make the same mistakes. And, you know, I should say that, you know, sort of like what I was saying before, someone calls it a social contract. In society, we have a lot of contracts amongst each other that are sometimes written, most times they're not written. When I'm driving down the street one way and somebody else is driving the other way, we both have an agreement not to hit each other, right?
Yes.
Because I have a family to go home to, you have a family to go home to. So even though we don't talk about it, for the most part, we try our best to be safe when we're on the road and not do things to intentionally hurt people, because we all have to live in this world and we don't want someone intentionally trying to hurt us, right? And so when it comes to art, the social contract amongst most people is that, hey, listen, music is something that we all love. It's a part of all of our lives. The minute we're a baby, our mothers are singing to us, church, we're singing. Music is a part of our life. But society has said, we don't want to pay for it, right? We want music as free as possible. And so, even though people were online, in the 90s and the 2000s, stealing music, so, nobody was charged with a crime unless, no one done nothing happened. It's theft. It's pure theft, but no one got in trouble for it, right? Unless you were doing something really bad. And they have to make an example or something. But the social contract, as it relates to art, is similar, and it says, "Hey, listen, you don't have to agree with the art or the message behind the art, but art is sacred. Art is something we want to protect. Art is something that will last generations. What would we be like today if we didn't have the pyramids to look at? If somebody said, you know what, those pyramids that those pharaohs built in Egypt, we don't want those anymore. Let's destroy them. Let's build a casino." Like, that's robbery. Society, even inside, you feel something's wrong with that. Because we know that when we leave something on this earth for our ancestors, we want them to be able to enjoy it. And we don't want someone to come around and say, I disagree with Antoine, I disagree with Ralph, so I'm going to remove it. It's just, at the end of the day, it's the contract in society that governs whether or not something will be damaged, something will be removed, or whether something will live forever.
Your last word for Haitian American artists, Haitian living in Chile, Brazil, wherever in the world.
Hola. My last word, I would just say, study to show yourself approved. Make sure that you take your time to master your craft. There's a book called Outliers by a man named Malcolm Gladwell. And he talked about how in his studies and his research, everyone he found that mastered something, whether it was in sports or music or science or history or whatever, anyone who's ever mastered something has put at least 10,000 hours of practice into that thing. The world's best basketball players, the world's best singers, the world's best musicians, no matter what you look at, they've all spent at least 10,000 hours mastering their craft. There's no reason you can sit there, pick up a basketball tomorrow for the first time and expect to be paid the same amount of money as LeBron James. That's foolishness, right? You know how many people play basketball and are able to actually provide for their family professionally by playing basketball? Not many people, less than 1% of the world, right? And so if I'm not practicing more than that 1% and working on my craft more than then I have no hope or dream of being able to support myself playing basketball. The same thing comes to art. Whether you're an artist, you're a musician, whatever you are, a sculptor, if you think that you're going to be, if you hope or desire or dream of being able to provide for yourself and live a lavish, wealthy lifestyle solely producing art because you love it and you want to live from that art, you have to spend more time than everybody else working on your craft to be able to earn the right to do so. Everything in life has a price of admission. If I want to go on the merry-go-round or the ride at Disney World, I have to pay the price, the ticket, to get inside the park. I don't just get to walk in there and get the best from situations. I have to put in the work and pay the price. Whether that comes from reading books, whether that comes from getting a good mentor, whether it comes from hiring the right professionals or consultants or watching YouTube videos. The information is out there, and it's up to you to put in the work, put in the time, 10,000 hours to be able to be great at whatever you do. And I guarantee the numbers don't lie. Everyone who's ever put 10,000 hours has always been an expert, elite at what they do. And to end with the Bible verse, it says that your gifts will make room for you and bring you before kings. That's Proverbs 18:16. So that means that if I master my craft, then it doesn't matter what I do. I can perform in front of the president. I can perform in front of the emperor. It doesn't matter. Everyone will know my name if I am the best at what I do. And to be the best, I have to put in the most work. And so I hope that you guys take this advice, read, educate yourself, and ultimately get the right team around you, protect yourself, and be the best you can be, because the world needs your art.
Perfect. That's wonderful.
Yes.
That's a wonderful talk about law and art.
Absolutely.
So,
My
see
pleasure.
you next time. On nous rencontre Filippo, qui c'est une meilleure sculpteur dans la génération qui vit en Haïti et qui veut parler de œuvre, de art et qui j'en deal avec client.
Parcours pas, c'est que je suis Nantes. Je suis Nantes, je mal plus bas. Ma spécialité dans la sculpture, anatomie et puis je fais soudure, une grande soudure à highway, bah ça. Après, j'ai trouvé formation pas suffit toujours parce que c'est un bail grand chose l'îlage en fait et mon sculpture là tout l'îlage et puis dans la France Bordeaux, je prends formation sur le bronze. Après, il y a une autre formation que soit je fais ou bien que je prends. Après, il y a un projet que moi-même que je rêvé, que je voulais pour travailler sur lui, c'était un projet et comment enseigner aveugle sculpter. Et ça, c'est en fait c'est un rêve qui était tourné réalité parce que moi-même à force que m'a sculpté, venu de mon côté c'est que c'est pas Dieu que me sculpter. Je me pas sculpter encore ni c'est nom c'est ça même avec le concept nom c'est nom parce que une dimension pour arriver au power c'est 60 ans c'est ça et puis une remarque que m'a font bail comme ça c'est comme si m'a développé un sixième sens. Et il me dit pourquoi pas on avec qu'à sculpter il suffit pour base technique là et pour faire pour un ami plus et puis pour ça la toucher pour te rendre compte que voilà m'a touché si m'a touché ma poêle et puis m'entrer dans dimension comment tout pour l'entrée et puis do base technique là et puis un seul coup et puis la fin réaliser ouais pour la capacité et pendant mal fait et travailler ça ensemble avec eux il y a des gens pour moi avec qui penser ouais pour moi il pas ouais pendant ce temps et avec comme c'est non voyant parce que et pour me calmer balan yo même parce que travail me fait avec travail que réussi faire il y a des gens qui ont un normal qui regarder qui va réussir faire dans petit temps que eux même yo gain pour faire c'est un travail que moi-même m'envie continuer pour côté dans n'importe l'autre pays il suffit que moi qu'on interprète ou bien comment mon presque dans zone là qui langue parler ou bien qui jargon que bien pour les m'a communiquer ensemble avec après ça son bel travail et on compte continuer ensemble avec et me sentir fier et me sentir bien de m'aider mon ça pour me capable passer parce que yo même yo ensemble de bail envie dit yo ensemble de bail dit mais là je non métier on parler de lui et puis bon toujours parce que mon ça yo même des bail vivre des discriminations yo te gon rêve yo gon rêve en fait yo gon rêve et société obligé à m'entendre et c'est ça fait me voir côté yo me te ka ouais plus ou moins message yo gain pour société qui message yo gain pour environnement yo qui message yo gain pour monde qui pense yo ouais tout le monde c'est ça qui est important moi et ça c'est fier et au même temps yo fier sur le travail ça et me connais que dans le travail toujours qui toujours montrer mon travail yo et ceci me toujours prêt toujours en communication ensemble avec au cas où j'ai besoin et ma vie ça a grandi partout et me penser plus ça élargi c'est plus ça fait bien que partie sociale que me gagne que mission que me gagne et en tant que bon c'est me pas dire en tant que jeune en tant qu'artiste en fait en tant qu'artiste c'est ça qui permet moi monde moyen de journée je tiens À propos de projet et sur Cuba, en fait, on a utilisé l'autre bois, mais je te tiens à ce que, en fait, pendant la première année, à retrouver le professionnel, en fait. Et puis, je te tiens à ce que, on tout fait pour tout le monde. Parce que, pour connaissance que, ouais, qui gagne, l'énergie que moi, je dégage dans le coup, je te tiens à ce que capacité ça gagne là, je vais quitter le comme ça avec des forts plus bas, et puis commencer à faire quoi avec Simonio, je suis capable de partager l'expérience avec eux. Et de même, c'est ça, moi, j'aime bien entrer à Haïti, et ça, moi, je vais faire Haïti. Donc, après, j'aime tourner, j'ai proposé de faire pour une autre, malheureusement, ça n'a pas marché, peut-être que tu es trop jeune, peut-être que tu es trop jeune, et ça a été une bonne indignation, parce que, normalement, si à l'étranger, à chercher, il y aurait capacité. Et il va regarder dans la jeunesse. Et au contraire, la jeunesse, c'est pour des plus recherche et plus motivé pour faire ça, rien pour le faire. Mais en termes de tourner en Haïti, bon, c'est une vieille expérience que je vais faire, avec toute l'énergie que je gagne, c'est une vieille expérience. Et il va l'accepter pour le genre. Bon, après ça, je me dit que je fais atelier femme, et puis voilà. Mais moi, j'aime bien là, au moment. Ok, travail ça et ça dépend de contrat qu'on a ensemble avec le monde. Et des fois tout, institution qu'on est spécialisée mais qui doit rien sur pièce. Au même en tant qu'artiste, je suis supposé défendre droit pour. Par exemple, moi, je suis dans l'artisanat, je fais artisanat, mais ça arrive, je fais artisanat d'art. Artisanat d'art, c'est par exemple une bonne pièce, décider de faire une multiplication de livres, par exemple, à échelle de 9 pièces. Par exemple, quand sorti pendant premier an, marqué 1 sur 9, deuxième an 2 sur 9, 3 sur 9, mais l'artisan lui-même a bien doit avoir 2 pièces, 2 pièces dans pièce ça. À noter que si tu as dépassé, le client lui-même qui a un droit, lui-même pour l'artisan, pour la justice, pour dire artisan, non, soit montrer notre affaire, il va se faire. Là, on vient vandaliser une pièce en plus. Et là, on vient tomber dans l'artisanal complètement. Donc, ça contrat pour client, chaque œuvre qu'on fait, pour moi, chaque œuvre que je fais, c'est comme si c'était la dernière pièce que moi je fait. Parce que c'est l'égal pour valeur avant 10-15 ans, ou bien dans 2 ans. Donc, et ça fait me mettre à mon sur chaque sac que m'a fait parce que je me dis la dernière pièce. Et ceci, avec le temps que la vieillit, la bien plus d'importance. Et par exemple, chaque pièce que l'artiste fait, c'est comme ses petites livres. Donc, et il y a une signature sur lui. Et il y a des gens qui ont envie de retirer le droit artisan complètement sur lui, mais l'artisan supposé quand même pour travailler en respecter avec lui-même parce que il y a une connexion qui fait entre lui-même à pièce. Elle dit mise à part c'est un contrat, mais du bon côté que pièce comme dépasser et contrat parce qu'il y a une connexion lui-même avec l'artiste. Donc et mon nom tout, ça dépend de contrat. Tout mon a dit OK, mon a un droit pour me faire publicité ensemble avec pièce, mon a un droit pour me faire publicité, le bail de publicité, photo, vidéo, ensemble de bail, chaque fois qui vient ouais, ou quantité qu'on bien fait. Mais au même par rapport avec ça tout, artiste compte toujours mal de des pièces, artiste compte toujours un droit sur lui-même, soit en 8% ou bien en 20% on va comme ça sur le travail ça il y a dérivé chaque année sur le travail ça lui-même que lui-même.
Est-ce que gagne œuvre là dans la sculpture est-ce que quelque part une œuvre ou fait il peut indéfiniment appartenir à l'autre monde que ou pas de droit sur lui du tout?
Bon, dans le contrat, pour qu'à toujours un contrat qui dit que l'artiste n'a aucun droit sur lui, mais l'artiste est supposé gommer tout. Pour en fait, j'aime dire c'est petit qu'il est. Donc, à peu voulu, mais c'est petit tout. Bon, voilà. L'artiste est supposé gommer, oui, mais il est possible pour qu'il y ait des œuvres artistiques et puis il n'y a pas un droit sur lui. Mais l'artiste est supposé gommer pour qu'il y ait un droit sur lui. Parce que dans le contrat, c'est tout ça qui est bon pour le monde. On proposé, mais même on doit ça qui est bon pour tout.
Parce que sculpture sont art qui tellement tellement là longtemps et puis qui a évolué pour nous avec des technologies. Est-ce que par hasard, pour œuvre qui t'est faite, c'est sûr que vous faites œuvre là et puis vous avez un moule qui appartenu à vous-même, vous avez fini signer un contrat avec un client, c'est 2 ou bien c'est 9 fois fait. Et puis vous avez une génération qui dit que tu as remis un moule ça et puis qui a un prix exorbitant, qui t'a remis que vous relancez lui pour faire une sorte de huitaine ou bien une neuvaine avec même pièce ça.
Ouais, mais et vin kon ba nan reproduction, même si on t'a parlé avant bien avant, dans reproduction qui a bien pour faire. Après 9 exemplaires que on a fait, artisan fait, et il est supposé détruire ça complètement pour nous ça pas exister encore. C'est ça, et dans règle, si on loi lié, et supposé ça, on supposé craser nous là, pour qu'on prenne l'autre qui soit assemblé avec un bail comme ça, mais monde ça lui-même l'a bien craser.
Est-ce que craser moule là et puis 9 pièces ça disparaître, est-ce que avec
il
le
va
temps
disparaître, mais c'est après il y a monde qui a conservé, au contraire, ça me fait pièce en vin plus fort, pièce en vin plus fort, et avec le temps la coûte plus parce que imagine bon monde qui vont Philippot, ils gagnent en 2 sur 9 sur Philippot ou bien les dernières, ça plaisir en pile bagaille. C'est ça qui fait pièce en gain valeur que vous gagnez.
Donc selon vous-même, vous pensez que principe ça, loi ça, vous pensez que c'est juste?
Bon, pour moi juste, ça permet d'artisan pour et travailler plus. Par exemple, si vous copier, vous entrer non, pour moi, vous entrer non, paresse pour moi. On va entrer non paresse. Et chaque pièce son défi, chaque pièce son nouvelle énergie. Chaque pièce, c'est, pour moi, c'est un temps, c'est un sacrifice.
Ok, c'est même genre avec crypto, tant que les plus rares, c'est tant qu'il y a plus de valeur.
Voilà, c'est ça. Le projet sur Washington DC, c'est un concours que tu as lancé. Et il y a plein de monde qui était en fait battu comme projet, mais il y a plein de monde qui était écrit nous relève, qui dit bon concours que vous lancé, ou supposé participer là-dedans. Et que voilà, m'a fait te dire, et participer là-dedans. C'est un concours sur l'euro indépendance. Côté il a fait Toussaint Louverture, quand il a Toussaint Louverture, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, Henri Christophe, Pétion, Sani Belair, Catherine Flon, avec un autre fille encore. Et puis, ouais, je t'ai bien choisi, parmi tous les sculpteurs, je t'ai bien choisi 5, après j'ai bien choisi 3. Et là-dedans, j'ai sélectionné pour faire Jean-Jacques Dessalines avec Henri Christophe. Après, l'autre de monde qui était là-dedans, c'était Michel. C'était deux anciens étudiants, c'était Michel avec Bertoni 16 qui était là-dedans. C'est un grand projet. C'est un projet qui a permis que les gens qui arrivent dans l'ambassade plus ou moins connaissent l'histoire et au nous. Parce que son bail et nous pas parler de eux. Et que des sculptures qui mérité plus ou moins parce que son sculpture qui est remplie de recherche là-dedans. En plus recherche sur question morphologique, sur question temps, costume, et demandé un peu de recherche dans le livre avec des photos que nous étions jeunes, que nous avons essayé de comparer, qu'on était sorti en photo, en image ou bien en dessin qui était plus ou moins approprié avec temps et style monde autour. Et ouais. Et puis voilà, j'ai été choisi nous. Et que j'ai fait Jean-Jacques Dessalines avec Henri Christophe et moi déjà me satisfait du travail moi, et que dans l'exposition c'était un plus grand ambassadeur qui était là et puis le monde a tout le monde qui était là yo content de travailler en plus félicitations puis l'autre des contacts par rapport avec le projet ça et déjà c'est un grand pas et au milieu culturel là et parce que n'importe qui a fait une ambassade là pour là il y a après travail là pour après travail là et deuxièmement il va questionner plus qui est ça et puis normalement il y a des livrets qui va dire voilà mais qui ont aidé, mais qui savent faire, mais comment? Parce que je suspecte que et nous-mêmes nous manquons en fait mais d'habitude c'est les gens qui font ce que tu voulais, mais nous manquons valoriser et des gens qui ont fait des travail sérieux dans la société ça. Le problème là, et les gens on aurait au vivant qui vont toujours que c'est ta mouille, mais le travail ça lui-même, il faut un questionnement sur si moun yo k'ap venir, voilà, papa ça y est, maman ça y est, ou bien il y a le côté et puis expliquer l'histoire plus ou moins, mais comment ça vit à l'époque là. Mais c'est un projet qui était là, son projet qui a continué, son projet parce que bientôt on a bien pour Jacques Dessalines de grande dimension complète devant l'ambassade là bientôt.
Qui dimension le cahier par exemple?
Et 5 mètres ou 4 mètres de hauteur par exemple.